Imagine waking up one day, opening your bank account, seeing the exact same number sitting there, but realizing your money buys less food, less fuel, less freedom, and less time than it did just a few years ago. That's the part nobody explains. Most people think the biggest financial risk is losing money. It's not. The biggest risk is spending your entire life believing your money is safe, while it quietly loses value every single day. That's the trap, and almost everyone walks into it willingly, because from the beginning we were taught the same formula. Work hard, save money, trust the system, keep your cash in the bank. We were told that's responsible, safe, smart. But if history teaches us anything, it's this. Cash is only valuable when the system behind it is stable, and stability never lasts forever. That's why the wealthiest people in the world play a completely different game. They understand something most people discover too late. Money sitting still is dying. Not dramatically, not overnight, quietly, while inflation silently moves in the background, reducing the value of everything sitting still. And that's exactly why most people never see wealth disappearing until years have already passed. Because real wealth destruction rarely looks dramatic. It happens slowly, quietly, while people feel comfortable, while they trust the system, while they believe doing the safe thing will protect them. But wealthy people understand something different. They understand that saving money and building wealth are not the same thing. That's why they don't just save money, they position money. Because once you truly understand how economies work, how inflation works, how debt cycles work, you begin to realize cash alone rarely creates long-term wealth. Ownership does. That's the real game. Ownership. And once you understand that, everything starts making sense. The first asset wealthy people move toward is businesses. Not because businesses sound glamorous, but because businesses create cash flow. A bank account pays almost nothing, while inflation quietly eats away at purchasing power. But a strong business adapts. Prices rise, revenue rises, demand changes. The business keeps moving while idle cash slowly weakens. And here's the deeper lesson most people miss. There's a massive difference between making money and owning systems that continuously generate money. Employees trade time for income. Owners build systems that generate income. That difference compounds over decades. A salary can pay your bills, but ownership creates independence. That's why the wealthy stopped focusing only on earned income long ago. They started building assets capable of producing income without requiring constant labor every single day. Because if your income disappears the moment you stop working, you don't own freedom, you own dependency. And once people realize that, they stop chasing income alone and start chasing cash flow. The second asset is stocks. Most people misunderstand stocks completely. They think stocks are numbers moving on a screen every day. But wealthy investors see something entirely different. They see ownership in productive systems, technology, innovation, global businesses, human productivity itself. When you own quality companies, you own innovation, labor, products, technology, and long-term economic growth. The wealthy don't obsess over daily market moves. They think in cycles. Because over decades, productive assets tend to outperform idle cash sitting in banks. And during inflationary environments, ownership becomes even more important. Why? Because businesses can adapt to inflation. Cash cannot. The third asset is real estate. And no, not because everyone online says to buy property. Real estate matters because it combines three powerful forces: scarcity, leverage, and cash flow. The wealthy understand something simple but powerful. Governments can print currency endlessly, but they cannot print prime land. That matters. Over time, currencies weaken, but scarce assets tend to preserve value. That's why real estate became one of the greatest wealth-building tools across generations. Not just because property values rise, but because quality real estate can generate income while also preserving purchasing power over time. And during inflationary periods, hard assets tend to absorb monetary expansion differently than cash sitting still inside financial institutions. That's the pattern wealthy people understand. Currency changes, ownership survives. The fourth asset is gold and hard commodities. Now listen carefully. The wealthy don't buy gold because they expect the world to collapse tomorrow. They buy it because they understand history. Every empire, every reserve currency, every major financial system eventually experiences stress. Debt expands, money gets printed, confidence rises and falls, and during those periods, hard assets historically become protection against uncertainty. Gold has survived wars, inflation, recessions, political instability, and collapsing currencies for thousands of years. Not because it produces cash flow like a business, but because it preserves purchasing power when confidence disappears. It's insurance against uncertainty, and the wealthy always prepare for multiple outcomes. That's why they diversify across different forms of ownership instead of depending entirely on paper currency or single income streams. The fifth asset is private investments. This is where many fortunes are quietly built before the public even notices the opportunity. Private equity, startups, private credit, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, emerging industries. The wealthy often position themselves early because they understand something most people ignore. The greatest returns usually happen before the crowd arrives. Now, of course, private investments carry higher risk, but the principle matters more than the category itself. The wealthy consistently move toward assets that can multiply value, not just store money. And once you step back and connect all five assets together, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Businesses create cash flow, stocks capture long-term productivity, real estate preserves and compounds wealth, gold protects purchasing power during instability, private investments position wealth ahead of future change. Different assets, same philosophy. The wealthy are not asking, where can I store money safely? They're asking, where can I place money so it survives, adapts, and grows through changing economic cycles? Because history moves in cycles, booms, bubbles, fear, recovery, expansion, contraction, again and again. And the people who understand those cycles early are usually the people who protect and multiply their wealth while everyone else reacts emotionally after the fact. That's why wealthy people study patterns so carefully, because every cycle transfers wealth, from people holding depreciating cash toward people holding productive assets. And once you understand that, you begin seeing the world differently. You stop believing wealth is only about income. You realize the real game was ownership all along. Most people spend their lives trying to earn money, while the wealthy spend their lives trying to own things. And that single difference quietly separates financial survival from financial freedom. Because there's a limit to how much you can work, but there's almost no limit to what ownership can build over time. At some point, everyone eventually asks themselves the same question. What can I own today that will still create value 10 years from now? And that question changes everything. Because the people who build lasting wealth are rarely the people chasing money the hardest. They're usually the people quietly accumulating ownership while everyone else is distracted by short-term noise. If this opened your eyes, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because understanding money isn't just about getting rich. It's about understanding the hidden rules that quietly shape the world around you. And the people who understand those rules early are usually the ones who stay ahead of the cycle.